Heyo, Gianni G here, and today I want to tell you something very important to me. I don't know how to say this. I'm really nervous about this. I just feel like this is the right time to do it. Well, let's just go for it. We are out here today at a local high school to speak with a young man to hear his story for the very first time. Let's see what he has to say. Ever since I was a kid, I always knew that I was a little bit different than everybody else. And what I mean by that is, growing up, I always had like the longer hair. I didn't have a sense of fashion in elementary school, middle school. It wasn't really until high school where I kind of developed, I guess you could say. But I don't know, going to school was really hard for me because I was always picked on by the way I looked, by the way I spoke. My voice was always a little bit higher than all the other guys. I had a lot of friends that were girls. I always had to ignore a lot of people, which was really hard even when they were family members. I grew up in a household that always taught me to be welcoming of all races, genders, ethnicities, people of all kinds, of all walks of life. And I think that's made me the person that I am today. It's really discerning to see, people to be put down for who they are when they should be celebrated. And that's what we're gonna do today. It wasn't until about the age of 15 that I really started to discover or question what my sexuality was. I always identified straight in high school. I dated girls in high school, which I really liked, until I dated my first girlfriend, which she cheated on me, so that sucked. I don't know, it was definitely a process of growing as a person, going from sophomore year to junior year to senior year. As I got older, guys were giving me more and more attention, which I really liked, but I wasn't sure how I wanted to entertain that situation at that time. Especially being that young of age, I was still trying to figure out who I was and what I wanted to do. Coming out of my high school really wasn't a thing to do. We had a few different gay people or LGBTQ people in my high school, but to be honest, kids in my high school were really mean. They were super judgmental. It definitely didn't make me feel like I was in a comfortable environment, even if I did want to come out. Especially being judged, it's really hard because you want to be accepted by your friends. You want to be loved for who you are, and that's putting yourself in such a vulnerable state that it just didn't feel right for me. A big term that I always heard was always like bi-curious, which I kind of didn't know what that meant at the time. I had a few different friends that were always like, I'm bi-curious, which is super cool because, you're exploring. It didn't really matter what I did in high school, whether how I dressed, who I hung out with, what sports I did, which, I ran track, I did cross country. Everything I always did was gay. Everything was always gay. Like, is that kid gay? Gianni's gay. Hey, Mr. Gay Boy. But hi, I'm here now. Nice to meet you. Everybody wanted me to be gay, which made me not want to be gay. I put a lot of pressure on myself to suppress how I was feeling about my sexuality, identifying as straight and always wanting to, do straight things, but really, I liked more of the frillier things, or I liked things that girls like to do, and that's okay. Don't hide how you want to be. It took me until I got out of high school to really figure out who I was, how I wanted to identify myself. I started to identify myself as asexual for a really long time. I really wanted to make that mental connection with someone before I had that physical connection. Today, which I'll get into in a little bit, I identify as Gianni, and I just like really hot people. So if you want to date me, I'm single. I've been out now since 2015. I came out publicly to my parents, to my siblings, and to close friends of mine. I want you to know more about who I am and what I have to offer, and I want to not be afraid to be myself anymore. And so now I'm sharing it online with you. Come out when it's the right time for you. Don't come out when other people are trying to force you to come out, or if they are pressuring you in any sort of way. Make sure that you have a safe location. Make sure you have a support system that will be there for you in your corner, whether that's a friend, a grandma, a teacher, a relative of some kind. I am so lucky to have the support system that I have supportive parents, that I have supportive friends, that I'm in a safe environment. I think if I were in a different situation, I would have had to reach out for help, and I want to make that a point that it's okay to reach out for help. There's a lot of resources out there, and I'm going to put them in the description down below. I wanted to tell you about my coming out story. So let's start with my parents. I came out to my mom first on April 9th, 2015, which was a Thursday. at 2:35 p.m. I wrote it down in my notes so I wouldn't forget. But so I remember like it was yesterday. I was sitting on my couch in my living room. I had just woken up. I think I had the day off. It must have been summertime or something like that because I didn't have school. I was wearing a t-shirt and I had my boxers on and I was so nervous. I remember like my hands were clammy and I didn't know how I wanted to tell her, but I knew I needed to tell her. She was doing laundry and I remember I sat down on the couch, crisscross applesauce, and I just was rocking and I was just sitting there. She comes out and I was like, hey. She's like, hi. And she's like telling me about whatever she has to do for the day. And I'm like, cool. I'm like, there's something I need to tell you. And she froze. She literally froze in the front of the couch. She's holding the basket of clothes. And she goes, oh, what's going on? What do you got to tell me? And I said, well, I've been thinking about it for a while now. I think I'm going to further explore my sexuality. She goes, I knew it. And I was like, what'd you know? And I cut her off. And she goes, well, I always knew this was coming. And I was like, well, what do you mean by that? I was like, I haven't told you anything yet. She's like, well, go ahead and explain. So I said, okay. I've been thinking about it for a while now. And like, yes, I like girls and I've dated girls. And, you know, I don't know if I like guys right now. I did. I said I wanted to explore my same sex. I said that, you know, it's just not going well. And I started listing off some of my exes, which are friends that my mom knows of. And she's just like listening to me. And she's like, no matter what, you're always my son and I'm going to love you. I'm going to support you regardless. But don't you want babies? And I was like, Mom, not right now. Like, this is not the time for that. But yes, I want babies and I'm going to have babies. But right now, I feel like this is just something that I want to explore. You know, I've always looked at guys a little bit, physical stature wise, you know, buff arms, abs, or like, you know, muscular looking feeling. And I didn't know if I like wanted that or if I liked that. If I wanted it on me or if I really wanted it on me. Yeah, that's me throwing a joke because I'm really nervous right now. But don't laugh. Don't feel, I mean, laugh. We're just chit-chatting here, right? We're just hanging out. So then at that point she goes, okay, like she was just listening to me. She was just shaking her head up and down. And she kind of just, you know, gave me some affirmation again. You know, have I told anyone else yet? And I said, no, like, I wanted to let you know. You know, I never felt like I needed to come out to you, but this was something that I wanted to tell you. And she goes, I knew ever since you were a little kid. And so that's when I cut her off again. And I was like, you can't know that I am something until I tell you. You can have assumptions, you can have a great feeling, but until I tell you that's what I am or that's what I'm going through, you know, you can only assume, you can only guess. And she said, you're right. I don't know. It was a really good feeling. I felt like I had a big weight off my shoulders. And then I needed to tell my dad. So I came out to my dad April 23rd, 2015. So this was like a whole 2 weeks later. I don't know why I was so nervous to tell my dad. Dad, if you're watching this, I love you. I was so nervous. And my dad loves me just as much as my mom does. And they're both real cool, chill parents. But I think just the whole father to son stigma of disappointing your dad for being gay, you know, growing up hearing that being gay is a bad thing or has a negative connotation with it, you know, the last thing you want to do is disappoint your parents. And oh, I love my dad so much, he's my best friend, so I didn't want to disappoint him. So my dad is a suit man, like 6 days a week, always at work, and if he's not at work, he's in the garage. So I went out to the garage. He's out there and he's working. He's sitting in this one blue chair in the center of the garage, and I come up behind him and I go, hey, and I kind of like tap him on the shoulder, I'm like, tee-hee, like, what's going on? What are you doing? Even though I can like see what he's doing. He's like, oh, working on the Plymouth or the car or whatever one he's working on. And I said, well, that's cool. I was like, I was so nervous. I didn't even know what I said. I said something to the effect of, I want to tell you something. And he goes, well, go ahead and tell me. And my dad's such a soft-spoken guy, so I was like, oh boy. Well, I think I'm going to start exploring my sexuality, especially with my same sex. And he goes, what? Because my dad doesn't understand all that mumbo jumbo, so I thought if I like said it like that, he would be like, okay, have fun. But he goes, what? And I was like, yeah, I'm going to start looking into boys. I like girls still, don't get me wrong. I always feel like I had to like explain that because I still like girls and I'm still into girls and I've dated girls and yeah. So he goes, but you don't want a girlfriend? And I was like, well, it's not that I don't want a girlfriend, but right now I just want to explore more options. He's like, well, how long have you known about this? And I was like, well, I've known about it for a really long time now. And he didn't look disappointed. He looked not stunned, but just like he was processing what I was saying. I then told him, you know, I told my mom about a couple weeks ago, and he's like, well, what did she say? And I said, you know, she supports me and she's okay with it. And she kind of said the same thing you did. He's like, well, just know you're my son. He kind of cut me off at this point, and he goes, you know, I'm always gonna love you. You've always been my baby boy. Like, I'm gonna support you no matter what. And it felt really good, but I knew that like he was still processing it. I was gonna just give him some time, but I felt awkward a little bit. I'm gonna be real about it. I felt a little awkward, but I was still like standing out there with him in the garage. We decided to talk about it for a little bit, especially like boys that I've like already intermingled with. And I guess my dad was super afraid, especially of like the AIDS epidemic, but obviously there's medicines and technology has improved and you can help keep it contained nowadays if that is something that happens to you. Yeah, no, it was really good. I'm glad I got it off my chest. It felt really great. I think my dad took a little bit longer to process it over time than my mom did, but both of them kind of grew up the same way, so they both would still ask me here and there, hey, you know, do you have a girlfriend? Yeah, his name's Joe. He'd be like, oh, great. They didn't really make it that awkward. I think that was just like how I saw it in my head, but they were cool about it. I'm like super fortunate and blessed that I had great coming out experiences. I think one thing looking back, if I could do it again, I think I would tell my dad the same time I told my mom, but it's hard to get them both in the same room at the same time. You know, it's a learning experience and it's a growing experience. Hey, okay, so I really wanted to explain this because I feel like it's super important to be your true authentic self, and that is something that I haven't been living for a really long time. I want to be super vulnerable in 2020 and for years to come, and I want to share with you who I really am. My name is Gianni G, and I am bisexual. I feel like it's super important to kind of state that because I don't really believe in labels, but I do like girls and I also like guys. I want to live my life completely as me all day, every day. I don't want to have to shield myself anymore. I don't want to have to censor myself or feel like I can't be myself around my colleagues, around my peers, around my family members. It definitely takes a toll, and I've lived kind of not hiding per se, but definitely shielding a part of me that I haven't been able to express. I want to live completely as me, all of me, all the time. I heard this quote from a different video, which I'll put the link in the Dropbox down below, but I feel like it's super important and it hit me really hard, especially because I haven't been living all of me. That's something that you should want to do all the time. I just want to help people. I kind of want to just help them be themselves, and I want people to be super happy, and I want to help people accomplish their goals and their dreams and be that figure that people can look up to and be like, wow, he did that, I can do that too. And I've been watching a lot of coming out videos for a really long time, so your boy's got a lot of tips, he's got a lot of tricks, he's been watching them, he knows what's up, and I want to be that for somebody else. So if I could help one person out with their sexuality or with their goals or with something that they want to accomplish, you know, that's why I'm truly on this platform, is to make a difference. This video means so much to me, and it's to show my progression with my sexuality, with my growth as a person, to see how far I've come. This is the start of the rest of my life, and I can't wait to share it with you. This is just the start to our story. Coming out, I'm Gianni G.